We started out and we thought that there are some principles, that basic things from which all things flow, and we think that those are stated in the Declaration of Independence, and they give rise to constitutionalism. And we went on to say that the Constitution depends upon certain broad things in its structure, and the chief of those is separation of powers. And all that really means, separation of powers, is that the kinds of powers in government are divided into different branches, and the same people don't hold them at the same time. And that means more than one person is running the government all the time in all of its different functions. And more than one group of people is running them. And James Madison says that's the most important thing about the Constitution, and it gives the Constitution its structure. How does it become possible for us to have separation of powers? What are the grounds of that are laid in the Constitution?
Well, it establishes the three branches, the judiciary, the legislative, and the executive, and by making them distinct in some...
Now, that's what that is. What lays the ground for that? How does it come to be possible for them to set up that system that I'm going to turn back to you, Emily, to describe to us all when I'm ready? I get to be the teacher. So, Casey, what are you going to say?
They write it all down in the Constitution. So the Constitution, it basically sets up all the different facets of the legislative, judiciary, executive branches. So after that, we can really talk about the different powers that they all have.
And it seems like the Constitution is sort of the fruits of those seeds that we saw in the Declaration of Independence, where they saw God in like these three roles, like divine providence, supreme judge, and the laws of nature.
Okay, now that's, see, okay, remember our code, right? So that was, that wasn't good enough, but it was on the way. So if you take that, which actually was not responsive to my question, and that, we're on the way to the answer I'm looking for. Sure. And the question is, so you say, it's like the fruit of a seed that's planted in the Declaration, and what you say, Tim, is God is explained as the three branches. You need to elaborate that, because the seed is a little more direct than that in my argument.
Well, at the time, the king was trying to execute all three branches of government. In their list of injustices, it was explaining how this has led to basically a long history of tyranny. And basically, the three branches that they established in the Constitution are the three areas that the king at the time was trying to control all at the same time.
Yeah, and that's the statement that why this thing is necessary, and why not to do it is bad. But think about it for a minute. So let me ask you, I said this explicitly several times yesterday, and I know you weren't listening to me because you were busy being photographed. But, but today we're going to have to think, right? Today we got up in the morning thinking we're going to work. All right, now, in the Federalist Papers, Hamilton makes the point that the judiciary is the least dangerous branch, something that might have changed. And the House of Representatives is actually the most dangerous branch. What is that about from your close reading of the Federalist?
Well,
I know what to call you. We're going to call you Spider-Man.
So my spidey senses tell me that.
There we go.
So in terms of in relation to the public, to the people, we directly vote for the representatives in the House of Representatives. Those are the people that are basically closest to our thoughts and opinions.
Now we're getting somewhere. Emily's twitching. What is it?
Well, I was thinking in relation to your first question as well as your second question. The House of Representatives, not only is it directly connected to the people, but it has the power of the purse and therefore makes it the most dangerous. But the fact that it's connected back to the people sort of leads back to the Constitutional Convention itself, and the fact that we had to go through the war and the Articles of Confederation and actually create a constitution based in the people, and there was an actual physical process.
Who's sovereign?
The people.
Why?
Because they have the vote of authority for what can be done.
Why do they have that?
Because they all men are created equal, so
There
they
you
each have
go.
their own opinions.
The seed. All men are created equal. It then follows that no one may be governed except by their
Consent.
Yeah.
You're going to have unanimous consent to form the republic, and then you're going to have majority rule to decide things. So we've entered a realm, right? There's a universe, this is like a planet. This is one of the ways to do it. Turns out it's the best way, right? They're even claiming it's the only really good way. But once you've done that, think now what follows, right? We talked about what a country is and why we have them. It's rooted in this gift of speech that we have, right? We always have them. We're always going to have laws, and the laws are always built on some agreement. What we called yesterday the final cause of the nation. And the final cause of our nation makes the people strong. Whereas the final cause of an absolute monarchy, or any strong monarchy, makes the eldest son of the oldest and strongest family powerful. So if the sovereign is the strongest thing, then the sovereign is also the most dangerous thing. It's the thing that can get everything out of balance, get all power unto itself. So all men are created equal. Therefore, they may be governed only with their consent. Therefore, the majority will be sovereign. And therefore, the majority will be the most dangerous thing. Right that they be sovereign. Necessary that they be sovereign, but dangerous. So you got that. We're living on that planet, right? We're not on Jupiter where the gods pick the sovereign, and we're not on Mars where the warriors pick. That's actually better than I intended it to be when I started. and we're not on Venus, we're the loveliest one. We're on Earth, and on Earth, human beings, all are created equal, each must consent, the majority will rule. So now, after that, the $64,000 question is, we know who the sovereign is. How's the sovereign going to operate in relation to the government? How are you going to set that up? And how do they answer that question? Where do they put the sovereign in the government, Christian?
They put it as the voter of people who then becomes a republic.
And that means, and this is the thing that Madison says in the 63rd Federalist, which we read yesterday, that Madison says is unique. Nobody ever thought of this one before. We're going to put the sovereign outside. And that means they can't get out of hand. Harder for them to get it. They're in control. Harder for them to become oppressive of others. The first check, the Constitution is a set of checks and balances, which Madison argues is written in the nature of things. And if you think about it, we've been saying that 2-year-olds or so start talking and dogs don't, right? And that's just a fact. That's how it is. Well, this is a fact, how it is the same way. You know, if you give somebody absolute power over you, and that person is any other living person I've ever met, except my wife and my closest friends, they're likely to abuse that power, right? And of course, marriages and friendships operate on a small scale. Politics operates among people who don't know each other very well. And they're people. And they have needs. And they see the world through their own eyes and not through everybody's eyes. They're not divine beings, even if they're divine-like. You see? So keep them out. But let them vote. Now we're in an amazing situation because all the power is out here and it can be delegated in a variety of ways and to a variety of people to do a variety of kinds of tasks, and the delegation can even happen at different times. Our powers are separated and equal. And you couldn't do that except that all the sovereignty is outside and then given in this way. And Madison says that because of this and because of other things, we can protect this separation. Separation of powers, by the way, is the biggest single protection in the Constitution, isn't it? Because the structure of the Constitution, it's organized in articles, right? And the first article is about a branch, and the second article is about another branch, and the third article about a third branch, and the fourth article is about mostly about a different level of government, right? So the people are, through this Constitution, delegating authority to a government, and they're doing it in these separate articles to indicate these separate branches. And then, even before that, the right of the people to consent and the inability of the people actually to operate the government are themselves divisions of power.